Today, multiple casualties have been reported following an explosion at a rally in the Afghan capital, Kabul. Local media say at least 60 people have been killed and about 200 injured by a suicide bomber. Thousands from the Hazara minority rallied because an electric power line was to be routed away from their province. There are reports that there could have been more than one attack or two. The Islamic State terror group says it was behind the blast, but there's question marks over that. Let's talk to political analyst Catherine Shackdam to try and explore this a bit further now. She's joining us live on the line. Catherine, hi. ISIL militants say that they're responsible, but this is Taliban territory, so could ISIL be trying to gain ground there? If not physically, certainly politically?
Yeah, quite possibly. I mean, there's been a trend over the past few weeks where, ISIL has tried to just claim responsibility for all attacks, terror attacks in the West and in the Middle East. And I think there is a desire to kind of, impose themselves as the only one being able to carry such attacks and being powerful enough to be able to have grander reach than maybe their sister in arms. I think there's almost, I would say, a certain competition in between, different branch of terror. And ISIL is really trying to impose himself as the only one worthy of supporting, which is, of course, quite worrying because ISIL is extremely violent and bloodthirsty when it comes to, carrying its agenda. I'm not saying that Al-Qaeda or the Taliban are any better, but there's a degree of violence
Catherine,
in ISIL which is really troubling.
Must be pointed out here, the Taliban spokesman apparently commented and said they'd sent an email to the media condemning the attack and saying that they weren't behind it. Well, if it wasn't them, but I suppose it must have been ISIL, must it?
Well, not necessarily. I mean, you could have other groups trying to kind of stir, sectarian tensions. The Hazara or Shia Muslim, and of course, there's always this question as to, why them. I mean, it's always, Shia Muslim have always been the religious minority, which, the likes of the Taliban and Al-Qaeda have liked to kind of pick on and oppress and repress because they feel very much threatened by them. Because Shia Islam carries a message of resistance and pluralism, which bothers them because it's not what they want to see happen. They want to portray Islam as this, this one dogma, and of course, Shia Islam stands in the way of that because a lot more Muslims are kind of, looking, to other denomination to find a solution to this radicalism, which is actually enslaving them. They understand this, This I'm talking about the Sunni world.
So do you think the Hazaras here they're a minority? Do you think they were attacked intentionally because of their religious beliefs? Yeah.
Not really. I think it's more about the political stance which underpins the religious belief because, like I said, Shia Islam stands for resistance, and resistance is a political expression. It's a desire to manifest democracy and to allow for pluralism to take hold. And I think that's the message they're going up against. Not so much the fact that, it is a branch of Islam that they don't agree with. It's the message that they do represent and they don't want to see kind of like take hold. You have to realize that when you have looked at, for example, in the 1960s, Pan-Arabism and this kind of national movement, this is what we have seen coming out of Iran in 1979. Even though it took a religious kind of undertone, the politics of it, the ideology behind it was resistance, was democracy, was pluralism. This is something that terrifies ISIL and Al-Qaeda and of course the Taliban, and this is something that is now kind of taking hold in Afghanistan. More and more people are listening to what the Hazara have to say because they understand that it could actually be the way forward for them, not because they agree with them religiously necessarily, but because they understand that there's the political kind of agreement and consensus that they do understand that they can relate to.
Just looking at those grim pictures while you're talking there, it begs the question in the first place, was Kabul really secure enough, given the situation right now, to hold any kind of rally?
No, this is true. But again, I think that Afghanistan has been kind of set up for failure, if I'm quite honest, because, the state has operated under some form of Western tutelage, but never really given the weapons and the means to establish itself as a real nation state. And that's the problem. When we talk about Western interventionism, when we talk about, going out to help countries to kind of, bring about democracy, we need to be really real about what we want to achieve and how we want to see it achieved. Are you going in there to actually empower people or actually tell them what to do? There's a great difference. And I think that Afghanistan cannot defend itself because it hasn't been given the tools to do it. And I'm not just talking about weapons. I'm talking about, allowing them to politically flourish, to find their own identity, their own voice, and to allow for the Afghani people to actually decide what it is that they want to see happen in their land. The same problem has happened in Yemen, in Bahrain, all over the place. Whenever you have seen Western intervention, we have seen the same scenario to kind of repeat itself.
So what's the prognosis here? Amnesty International's reacted, saying that the attacks are a reminder that the conflict in Afghanistan is escalating. Is it escalating?
I don't think it's escalating. I think what you're seeing today is kind of a revival of, the likes of the Taliban and maybe another form of terror, because the root of the ideology was never actually addressed, never mind eradicated. And that's the problem. Unless you actually address, the undercurrent, what is actually, what this ideology means, what it's feeding on, it's never going to stop. That's the problem. It's only going to kind of like morph into something else. And so far, this something else has been more and more violent, more and more brutal and bloodthirsty. I mean, if you just see what happened in Syria with the beheading of a 12-year-old Palestinian boy, I mean, how low are we going to go before we actually wake up and face this ideology of terror, this dogma, this system? We need to go after the idea, never mind blowing up militants, never mind, trying to find political solutions to the issue. No, it's not. We have an ideological warfare going on. We need to address it. It's as simple as that.
Catherine Shackdam on the line with us there, political analyst. Thank you for your thoughts.
My pleasure.
Thank you for being with us too. A lot more to come. I hope you can stay with me this Saturday. Up next, a French MP tells us how France is dealing right now with terror attacks on its soil.